Hi, I'm Sandi Genovese and welcome to this episode of the Ellison Education video series. We're talking today about measurement, and it is a must-have skill. I can't tell you how often, at least once a day, I have to pull out my ruler to measure something. Most of the times it's because I'm making a card or a poster or something, and I can't tell you how disconcerting it was for me to find adults who, when they're describing measurement to me, will say it's like 2 ticks past the 7 on the ruler. And it's like, seriously? You didn't have that in school? So if you use these dies that we're going to talk about today, you could cut out these measuring devices for each student. We're going to start with the protractor. And because the protractor is going to be measuring angles, I think that it's helpful to cut it out of plastic. I'm going to be cutting it out of a sheet of plastic. You can get this at a craft store. You can get it at a hardware store. Because they're protecting the plastic, it has a coating, a blue coating on both the top and the bottom. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to leave the coating on while I cut, and I am just going to put the plastic so that it's covering the blade of the die, and then go ahead and place this on the machine. Because I'm cutting in the Big Shot Pro, I have with the blade sitting up, I'm going to just roll it through. And when it comes out the other side, this is a fairly thick sheet of plastic, but as I said, you can get it in lots of thicknesses. I thought that it would be handy to use one that was fairly thick. So this is what it looks like. I do need to pull off the coating. I'll use a pair of tweezers so that my fingers aren't in the way. You can see how I'm just going to pull this protective cover right off. They're making sure that if you're using this, like, oh, for instance, for a picture frame, that you're not going to have any scratches on it. I'll do the same thing. I'll pull it off. It pulls off nicely. And if you'll notice, the protractor has all of the measurements that you're going to need. It's got inches along the bottom, and then it's got the degrees in 15-degree increments that go along the arc. Now, because it's plastic, you do need to mark with a permanent marker. So I used a Sharpie, and if you look at this one here, I've marked the degrees in black for the measuring of the angles, and I've marked the inches in red, just to help sort of separate where I'm marking the inches and where I'm marking the degrees. Then you can take different shapes. You can cut out different die-cut shapes that you have and lay them down. I'll set this down so that you'll ask the kids to measure what would be the angle, for instance, when this is lined up with the center. And along the line, the angles on this triangle are 60 degrees. Then if I take the same protractor and I'll bring it down here, then you might ask them to measure the angles on this square. And in geometry, if you've talked to them about that a square has 90-degree angles, they're going to be able to reinforce that by using the protractor that they just created. Now, this is all fun things to do with the protractor, but the other measuring tools that you can cut with dies are rulers, and there is a ruler. I'll bring these both so you can see. There is one that will cut so that the measurement is indicated in centimeters, and there's one that is in inches. You can use both so that your students measure both ways and they learn the difference between the two. Or you pick the one that you use in your country, and that's what you can go with. But if you, once again, take the paper and then lay it down so that it aligns with the marks on the ruler, you can see that this particular sheet of paper, this square, has 6-inch sides. But maybe you want to make sure you measured the angle. So if it's 90 degrees, that should be square, but you can turn the other dimension. This isn't a 6-inch square. Look at how I thought it was. This is 5.5 by 6. And it's a little misleading because at a glance it looks like it could be a square. If you want them to go back and then measure more, you could ask them to take this same 6-inch length and divide it. So let's say you wanted to fold this, to put it into something. Ask them to fold it so that if you told them to fold it in half, they almost don't have to measure to do that. But if you have them fold it into thirds, they're going to have to put a tick mark at the 4 inches and again at the 2 inches so that they can fold this up along those lines. You can measure things beyond just geometric shapes. If you look at the table here, let me bring over and I'll show you. If you said, what was, let's say, the height of this house? So if I reconfigure the ruler so that it's up and down vertically, and I lay this down, I can see that from the base to the roof line, it's 2.5 inches. So measuring the different things, you could bring in a die like this and ask them to measure from the center of the front wheel to the center of the back wheel. All of these are things that are fun for measuring. I think, however, it's important to relate it to real world. And my niece has little girls. They measure their hair, I'm going to say at least once a week. They probably do it every day, except it, doesn't grow that fast, so it doesn't change. But it's a big deal for some reason to have the longest hair. And they will get into disagreements about did they start at the same place. So now they actually pull out one hair, they lay it down, and they measure it. If they want to donate to Locks of Love, which they've done, their hair has to be a certain length. These are things that help them understand the value of measurement and how it relates to their everyday life. If you have young students, they will know, if they've ever been to Disneyland or Disney World, to go on what they consider the good rides. The kids tell me that they need to be 42 inches. And I have a great niece who's 39.5 inches. She is checking once a week to see when she's going to be 42 inches. Those are real life examples that are great. Another thing that you might want to do is consider measurement. We've been talking about linear measurement, but you can also talk about volume. Now, I'm going to show you what looks like fractions. It is fractions. This die is called the fraction fringe, and we use it to help students understand equivalent fractions. So if you ask, for instance, how many 16ths are in 1/4, they can go like this, count the number of 16ths that would be in 1/4, or if you said how many 16ths are in 1/2, all of these are simple equations to do with the fraction fringe. This can also be used to show volume. So this is the fraction fringe in large. I did the extra large just so it would be easier for you to see, but you could do the same exact thing in this size. But if you use this to show cups, 16 cups, and then that it equals 8 pints, which equals 4 quarts, which equals 2 half gallons, which equals 1 gallon. Now the beauty of this, if you dare, you could bake something either in the classroom or at home and really mess up. Put in, like, instead of 1 tablespoon of salt, put in 1 cup of salt. And then have them taste it and have them realize how important the measurement really is to their life. Whether you're measuring inches, degrees, centimeters, any of those, cutting out rulers and protractors and even right triangles, they are going to help each student at testing time and all the whole year long.